Hide is a creepy game. It's also short, difficult, and burns itself out pretty quickly. On the one hand, Hide is this very interesting experiment in concentrated tension. It plays out like a surreal nightmare. And on the other hand, the game is too slow paced for its own good. The difficulty of the game means you're likely going to need to play it multiple times before you win, but there's this plodding build up on each playthrough that means that it's going to lose most of its atmosphere and appeal before you get there, at least for many people who play it. So in Hide, you play as this unknown man who's escaping from a compound during the night, and you go through woods and ice flats and snowy hills. It's very interesting. It sets up a very nice setting. It's got a good wintry feel to it. And as you're going across this landscape, you're looking for these little hidden locations and trying to run away from these wraith-like figures that are pursuing you. The world is realized through very heavily pixelated graphics that are reminiscent of early 3D gameplay attempts. The objects are usually abstract suggestions. They leave a lot to the player's imagination. And that same approach was actually put to great effect in Ivan Zanotti's I'm Scared in 2012. And Hide benefits from the same surreality of crude shapes and imagery. The sound is very sparing. There's a distant siren that wails at the beginning of the game. You can hear it sometimes throughout the game also. The protagonist's breaths get more ragged as he's fleeing from these wraiths who emit this really eerie tone as they close in on you. Atmosphere is the game's biggest accomplishment. It's just minimalist enough to unsettle the imagination because it's kind of uncanny. You always feel like you're caught up in this otherworldly dream. You move very slowly. You can only sprint for very short durations. The protagonist gets fatigued even when he's walking, and he can't sprint again at all without sitting still for several seconds. This works early on to increase the tension, but it also becomes very annoying when you stop being focused on just the immersion of the game and you start thinking more about, hey, I want to win. The locations that you have to find to beat the game are spread widely across the area, and about two of them are always going to be nearly bare of hiding places. So between the protagonist's slow movement and the increasing number of pursuers that come after you as you find each location, it starts to become an exercise in frustration. There are 5 locations in all, and after you find the third, this Zeppelin starts scanning for you with a searchlight. And for me, the Zeppelin would almost always find me instantly, regardless of wherever it was on the map, if I tried to sprint at all. So I stopped doing that. But it would even find me if I was walking in the dark. It's only if you find a sufficiently good piece of cover, like an entire building or a big rock, and you sit there at just the right angle, you can wait out the Zeppelin and it'll pass by. And that fits the namesake of the game. The idea is you're supposed to hide. But this becomes really difficult when you're trying to reach the final location because you're not always in a position where you can take advantage of something like a big rock or a house. So regardless of what order you tackle the locations, at some point you're going to have to make this, it would be a mad dash if you could sprint, but you can't. And at that point, it's almost more luck-based than anything else, because even a brief touch from the Zeppelin searchlight will start attracting all the wraiths from across the area to capture you. And after several attempts of trying different routes, varying amounts of passivity or proactive strategies, the game stopped immersing me as much and it just became frustrating. And the fun of the immersion faded away because I got more concerned with the repetition of the little irritants of gameplay than the experience itself. But the last attempt I gave after I spent some time away from it and cooled down, I was able to try a new approach to it, which shows up in this video, where I actually did win at the end. Horror games in particular are very sensitive to anything that disrupts immersion. Most of them rely on their scare factor or their atmosphere to entertain the player as much, if not more, than the core gameplay. So what I found with Hide was the best way to approach it was as a game that provides this creepy experience that you don't play too seriously. You really want to just let the whole thing sink in and try and spook you a little bit. Don't worry too much about, whether you win or not. Maybe I'm speaking more for myself than other people, but that's just how I found it to be.